Good morning, guys. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So only 8 students, 8 persons are joining. It's very less. Out of 30 students, only 9, 10 people are there. Okay. So going further, who are joining the sessions, they will only get the documents. Video I will upload in the Telegram group, right? From where you can download the videos, but the document only going to be shared to those people who are attending the session. And those who are informing me earlier that they are having some issue, they were unable to join the sessions, they will get the documents. Otherwise, who are not informing me and those who are not attending the sessions, they will not get the documents from today onwards. Is that clear to everybody?
Yep.
Yeah. So so if you are not attending the session and if you are not informing me, then you will not get the documents. You will get the videos, right? I will upload the video. You can watch through the video, but you will not get the document, right? But if you are attending, then you will get the documents. And if you are informing me earlier that you are not going to attend the classes because of some so reasons, then you will get also the document. Because people are so out of 30 students, it is not possible that 20 people are having some issues. I can understand 5 people, 3 people having some issues. They are unable to attend the session, but it's not like that. Only 30-35% people are joining. Rest 60-65% people are having some issue. Right?
Are you sharing the documents by private channel, or how are you going to share the documents? Asking.
Yeah, I'm not sharing the document through channel. I have already the WhatsApp number of each and everyone, right? So yeah, and the second thing is that those who are joining the channel, everyone is in the group, right? So who are attending, I will get the information from Zoom meeting history, right? And I will personally share the documents to their Telegram group. Right? So you are joining that Telegram group, means you are having the Telegram account. So I can directly share on your personal Telegram account.
Okay.
Yeah. See, why I'm saying it because see, without making this document, also I can take the classes, right? Why I'm making this document? Why I'm spending 2 hours, 3 hours for making this document? If you are not attending the sessions, then why I should share these documents to you? You should only watch the videos. I'm going to share the videos anyhow. Right? Okay. So today we are going to continue our discussion related to threading. In our last session, we have discussed what is exactly multi-threading, what is single thread application, what is multi-threaded application, right? How multi-threaded application execute in .NET framework and how to create a multi-threaded application, right? Today we are going to continue our discussion, and today we are going to discuss one of the important class of multi-threading, that is thread class, right? So if you go to the thread class, then you will see that there are lots of methods, properties, and even different constructors are available. Different constructors and all these things are available. Today we are going to discuss all these things, right? So you can say, before proceeding further, let me discuss what is thread agenda. First, we will discuss what is thread class. Then I will explain what are methods, properties, and constructors available in thread class. Then we will today we are going to target this constructor part, right? We will try to understand the different constructor, what is the role and responsibility of each constructor. Coming to this properties and method, once you progress, we will understand one by one, right? So some of the properties we'll use today, some of the properties and methods we are going to use in our upcoming sessions, right? So I'm not going to discuss all the properties at a time, because those properties are going to be discussed in their respective chapter, right? Properties and method. But constructor today I'm going to cover. We'll discuss why is the constructor of thread class taking a parameter of a delegate type. Then we'll understand what is ThreadStart delegate. We'll discuss thread function with parameter. We'll discuss what is parameterized ThreadStart delegate, right? And when to use parameterized ThreadStart delegate over ThreadStart, right? Then what are the problems with parameterized ThreadStart delegate and how to overcome the problems of a parameterized ThreadStart delegate. So this is what we are going to discuss. Apart from this, two more things we are going to target today: how to pass data to a thread function in a type-shape manner, and how to retrieve data from a thread function in C#, right? All these things we are going to discuss today. First of all, what is thread class? The thread class is responsible for creating custom thread, right? Suppose you want to create one custom thread, right? Suppose you are having one method, right? Let's say static void m1 method, right? This method, and if you want to execute this method using a different thread, not the main thread, right? Then what you need to do, you need to create one thread class instance, right? To the thread class constructor, you need to pass the method name that you want to execute. Like the delegate, if the method is a static method, then you can pass that method, right? You can refer to that method by using the class name, or by using, if the method is a non-static, then you need to create an instance, and then you need to pass that method, right? And once you call the start method, then what will happen behind the scene? The method, this thread pointing to that method, is going to start its execution, right? So basically, thread class is basically used to create a custom thread, right? This T1 here is nothing but one custom thread, right? With the help of a thread class, we can create both the foreground and background threads, right? What are foreground thread, what are background threads, that we will cover in our upcoming sessions, right? So if you look at the course syllabus, right? So there's something called as a foreground thread and background thread that we'll cover in detail, right? And the next is the thread class is also allowed us to set the priority of a thread, right? If you discuss, there is a concept called a thread priority. Somewhere you will see thread priority is there. Where is that? Yeah,
18.
thread priority. 18, thread priority. We will cover that thread priority in detail, right? And if you go to the definition of thread class, then you will see that this class is a sealed class, right? Go to the definition. As it is a sealed class, that means no further inheritance is possible, right? No class can going to inherit from this sealed class. For example, this is my program class. If I try to make an inheritance with the thread class, then this is not possible, because this class is marked as sealed. As it is a sealed class, no further inheritance is possible. It cannot derive from the sealed type thread, right? So this is what we have already discussed, right? So this is a sealed class, right? And this thread class, as you can see, provide lots of methods, right? You can see there are 4 different types of constructors. Some properties is there, right? Some important methods are there, right? So we are going to discuss the most useful and the most important methods, right? It is not possible to discuss all the methods, right? Not possible to discuss and cover all the methods, but what are important, what are going to be used in your programming, right? Those are all I'm going to cover, right? So what are the properties I'm going to cover, or what are the method I'm going to cover? See, current thread is a lib, is background, manage thread, name, priority, thread state, and is thread pool. So these are the properties which are used frequently, right? I'm going to cover these properties. What is current thread? Means we have already discussed. This is a property which is going to return the current thread instance, the currently running thread instance. What it means? It means which program is running, which thread is running your application code. So this is one method. Which thread is running that method? Main thread is running. That main thread information is going to be written by this current thread property is alive, whether the thread is in a running state or not, right? Whether it is not or terminated or aborted. If it is not terminated, or if it is not aborted, right, then it is going to return me a live, right, which will indicate that the thread is currently executing. If it is returning me false, means the thread has completed its execution, or the thread has normally terminated, either normally or uprooted, right? Each background, basically this property is going to check whether the thread is a background thread or a foreground thread, right? We'll discuss this thing. Manage thread ID, we'll discuss. Name, we have already discussed. By default, the thread what you created doesn't have any name, right? If you want to get or set the name, then you need to use this name property. Priority means by default, it is going to be normal, and high and low priority is also there. So we'll discuss what is this priority, how to set the this priority, what is the default priority. All these things we are going to discuss. Thread state, if you go to the thread state, then you will see that there are a different state of a thread, right? So if you go to the definition of this thread state class, well, then it's going to be an enum, and in this enum you can see the different state of an thread. So whenever you call the start method, then the state of the thread is going to be wrong, right? And whenever you create a thread, then by default it is in unstarted state. That means in this case, right? So in this case, when you created this thread, right, at that time, suppose you have not called this start method. So in this case, the thread is created. The thread state is going to be unstarted because you have not started that thread, right? Once you call the start method, the state is changed to this running state, right? So we'll discuss what are all these states, right? So when we will discuss the thread life cycle, so you will see that there is a concept called thread life cycle. In that session, I'm going to discuss what are all these states, right? How you can change from one state to another state. If one thread is in background in running state, what are the things you can do? If one thread is in an uprooted state, then what are the things you can do? How you will make sure that the thread is in uprooted state, or how you will convert a running state to uprooted state? All these things we are going to discuss in that session, right? So each thread pool, so there is a concept called a thread pooling, right? So you will see that thread pooling one concept. So we'll discuss what is thread pooling, right? And what is the advantages of using thread pooling? Is it necessary to create the threads always, and as soon as for completed the task, should we delete them or should we store them in the thread pool, so that later when if you want to execute another method, so we can just get the thread from the pool and use it, right? Or that concept we are also going to discuss in detail in our thread pooling, right? And similarly, coming to this thread class method, right, there are, you will see lots of methods are also available. Uproot method, so we have already shown you. So there are different states. So when the thread is going to the uprooted state, at that time we need to call the uproot method on the thread class instance, right? So we'll discuss that in detail. Interrupt, join, reset, uproot, resume, right? Once the thread in waiting state or sleep mode, right, then you can also make that thread to resume, right? So once we discuss the inter-thread communication, right, At that time, I will discuss what is all these things, right? Sleep method we have already discussed. If you want one thread to sleep for some time, right, then you need to use this sleep method. To this sleep method, you need to pass the integer milliseconds in time, right? That millisecond number of time the thread is going to be sleep. This start method we have already discussed. By default, whenever the thread you created, that is going to be in unstarted state, right? And when you invoke the start method, then the state of the thread is going to be in the running state. So once the thread is in the running state, then it will only going to execute the corresponding method. Suspend, if you want to suspend the execution of a thread, then you need to use suspend yield method, right? This method causes the calling thread to yield execution another thread, right? So basically what is happening now in this case, see, if in inter-thread communication, what we want there are two thread, one thread is executing method one, another thread executing method two, and method one makes the thread yield so that the method two right, which is going to be executed by another thread, they can start execution, right? So we'll discuss that concept in detail, right? How to use I resume all these things in our inter-thread communication session, right? Today we are going to discuss the thread class constructors, right? So if you go to the definition of a thread class, then you will see that there are 4 different constructors available. And if you will see that the constructor is taking parameter of a ThreadStart and parameterized ThreadStart. Forget about this integer of max stack size. So basically this max stack size property is used to set what is the max size of your stack memory, right? So why it is important? Because whenever we are creating the variables, right, the memory allocation is going to be done on the stack. Then what is the maximum stack size that is going to be decided by that? So this property is not that important. Mostly we are going to use these two, right? Parameterized ThreadStart and ThreadStart delegate. So what is this ThreadStart and parameterized ThreadStart delegate? Now basically, if you go to the definition of ThreadStart delegate, then you will see that it's a delegate. And what is the return type of this delegate? Return type is void, and does this delegate take any parameter? No. That means if your class, if you want to execute one method whose return type is void, and if that method doesn't take any parameter, right, then only you can use this thread, right? Then only you can use this constructor of the thread class, right? That means you need to pass one method whose signature is going to be same as this signature. If the method return type is void, and if the method doesn't take any parameter, then you can pass that method as a parameter to this thread class constructor, and this thread class constructor is then going to create an instance. Coming to this parameterized ThreadStart, you will see that this method takes one object as a parameter, and the return type is going to be void. That means if your method takes one input of object type, right, and if that method doesn't return anything, then in that case you need to use this parameterized ThreadStart. So that means what? That means the thread function is going to execute the method whose signature must be same with this parameterized ThreadStart, or the signature is must be same with the ThreadStart delegate, right? Apart from this, if the signature is varied, then you cannot call that method using thread. So that means whatever method you are going to execute via multi-threading or via thread, that method signature should be this two. The return type should be void, and the method is going to take one parameter of object type, right? So we'll discuss if the method return type is void, then how we will return data from the thread function. We'll discuss if the object, if the parameter type is object, but if the thread function taking more than parameter, different types of a parameter, then how we can pass data to our thread function, right? All these things we are going to cover today. Is that clear? What we are going to discuss today?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So you can say this is my function which is not taking any parameter, and this function also not returning anything, and I'm passing that function as a parameter to this thread class, and when I invoke the start method, this method is going to be executed, right? Let me run the application and show you the output. Right, 1 2 3 4 5, we are getting the output as expected. Right, now how is this possible? How I am passing this method name as a parameter, and how is this possible? Any idea from anyone?
Delegate. It's a delegate.
Right, so basically, so whenever you are passing this method, right, void and display number, which is not taking any parameter, if you go to the constructor of thread class, right, if you go to the constructor of thread class, then you will see that currently he is using this version, this overloaded version of the thread class constructor. So if you go to the definition of this thread class, then you will see that the signature is this one. So now coming to our method, is our method signature the same as the ThreadStart delegate? Yes or no?
Yes.
That means the method what you are passing, that method signature is same as your ThreadStart delegate. So internally, what compiler will do is he will create an instance of the ThreadStart delegate, and to this instance, right, while creating the instance, so to this thread class constructor, he will pass this method name as a parameter. So the above statement, right, what I am writing here, it can also be rewritten like this: ThreadStart ts equals to new ThreadStart, and to the constructor, I'm going to pass this display number method as a parameter, and then I can pass this ts as a parameter to this. So the above statement, what we have written so far, okay, let me copy this one. Right, so instead of a display numbers function, right, I can also write like this. So whenever you write this statement, behind the scene, this is happening. Right, now can I pass this ts as a parameter to this thread class constructor? Yes. Why? Now because this thread class accept one parameter of which type? ThreadStart delegate. Yes or no?
Yes.
So is that a ts type and the parameter what this constructor is expecting, both are same?
Yes.
So I can pass this one, and whenever I pass this one, what is this? This is a delegate. Delegate means it should point to some function. Yes or no? Because that is the main funda or main logic what we have already discussed in our delegate. What is delegate? Delegates are nothing but function pointers. They refer to some function, and when we invoke the delegate, the function they are referred by, they are referring the function. Those functions are going to be executed, right? So in this case, you can see this delegate, what we are passing, that delegate is going to be executed, right? So instead of doing this, you can also do this. That is also going to be fine. So instead of creating a new instance and passing all these things, you can also directly pass this one. That is also fine. If you don't want to do this, you can also do like this. There is no difference. In this case, what I'm trying to do, I'm creating one instance, storing that instance, this reference variable, and passing that reference variable to this constructor. And here, I'm directly passing that instance to the constructor. This statement is also valid. Is that clear?
Yes.
Is there any question related to these three statements? T1, let me give this as a TS, let me give this as a T2, and let me give this as a T3. That means in how many ways you can create a thread instance, means these are the three different ways by using which you can create a thread instance. You can directly pass the method name. You can create an instance of the ThreadStart delegate, store that ThreadStart delegate to a reference variable of the same type, and you can pass that reference variable, and directly you can pass like this. And whenever you call this t1.start method, so this t1.start method will internally invoke this ThreadStart instance. That means in this case ts. So it will internally invoke this ts.invoke method, right? So So when we invoke this TS.invoke method, this is internally happening, right? Internally, delegate internally this thread invoking this thread the delegate instance, right? When this delegate instance invoked, right? Then this delegate instance pointing to some function or not?
Yes.
Then that function is going to be start executing. And how it is going to start executing? Now, so currently the state of the thread is going to be on started, and when you invoke this start method, the state of the thread is going to be changed to running, and then it will invoke the internal instance of the ThreadStart delegate. And when you invoke the ThreadStart delegate instance, then the thread start pointing to what method, that method execution is going to start. So that means this method is going to start its execution. Clear or any doubt?
No doubt.
Anybody? How the execution takes place? Why I'm passing one display number method and that is acceptable? We see in this case this is acceptable because the constructor know I'm expecting one method whose signature must be matched with either this ThreadStart delegate or with this parameterized ThreadStart delegate. If the signature match, then it's fine. Now let me try to change this void to integer. Once I change this void to integer, is the signature is going to be same as the ThreadStart or parameterized ThreadStart delegate?
No.
Then in that case, immediately you will see some compilation error. Why? Because delegate are types of function pointer. They will make sure the return type and the number of parameter what you are passing with the method will be exactly same as the delegate type. If the signature is not same, then he will not allow to register that method with the delegate instance. Clear?
There's a one doubt here.
Yeah.
Like both the delegates that their thread is accepting are of type void. Their return type is void. So
Yes.
we can only call the methods which are not returning any value. If like the method is returning any value.
So in the beginning only, I have told you, I'm also going to discuss how to pass data to a thread function in a type-shape manner and how to retrieve data from the thread function, right? That is what I'm going to discuss, right? Here you can see the return type is void. Then if you want to return some data, then how you will return the data? Right? And if you look at this parameterized ThreadStart, it is taking only one input parameter of object type, right? Object type means it is not a type set, right? Object type means boxing and unboxing is required. And in this case, you cannot pass more than one parameter, right? If you want to pass more than one parameter and if you want to pass the data in a type set manner, right? Then how you will do this? That is also what we are going to discuss, right? So, but we are going to discuss step by step, right? So I'm going to cover all these things today. So in this case, this is the different mechanism on in how you can pass a method to a thread function. So internally, if you are seeing this statement, then you need to understand behind the scene this is going to be happening. And even this two statement you can write like a single statement like this. And when you invoke the thread, right? The status of the state of the thread is going to be changed to running, and internally it will invoke the ThreadStart instance, ThreadStart delegate instance, and that ThreadStart internally going to execute the corresponding method. Right? Clear or any question from anyone? Right? Clear now? See, why is the constructor of thread class taking a parameter of a delegate type? Means we already discussed that the main objective of creating a thread in C# to execute a different method, right? So why we are creating a thread? We are creating a thread to execute a function. Or any other purpose is there for creating the thread? Guys, why we are creating this thread?
To call the functions.
Obviously, to call a different function. If you are creating another thread means you are going to execute another method. So basically we are creating a thread to execute a different function. But and we already know that, right? A delegate is a type of function pointer. It means the delegate points to a function, and when we invoke the delegate, the function which is pointed by the delegate is going to be executed. So in simple words, we can say that all the threads that we create require an entry point, that is a pointer to the function from where it should start its execution. That means we want some entry point, right? Entry point in the sense from where we need to start the thread function execution, right? This is the reason why they are expecting one delegate type, and delegate are nothing but a function pointer. They refer to a function, right? And when we invoke that delegate instance, the function is going to be executed. This is the reason why they need an entry point to start the execution of a method. And there is no other option than this delegate, right, to start the execution of a method, right? We have already discussed this. So this means what? This means if your method, right, if your method return type is void, and if your method doesn't take any parameter, then you need to use this ThreadStart delegate. Clear or not?
Yes.
Yeah, clear.
Sir, 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I missed the point.
Sorry?
Can you repeat the point? I had missed it actually.
Yeah, so if your thread function, in this case, this function is nothing but your thread function. If this thread function does not take any input parameter, and if the thread function does not return any value, then you need to use this ThreadStart delegate. You need to use this ThreadStart delegate. But if your function takes some input parameter, right? Let me type like this object now, right? So in this case, you cannot pass that display function as a parameter. In this case, it is expecting, right? Why it is expecting? Now, in this case, it is not pointing to the constructor which is taking ThreadStart delegate. It is pointing to the other overloaded version of the constructor which is taking a different class, parameterized ThreadStart. And if you go to the parameterized thread class definition, then you will see that this class taking one parameter, this method taking one parameter of object type, right? But in this case, if you are creating the ThreadStart instance manually, ThreadStart delegate instance manually, you cannot pass this method, right? Why? Because the signature of this ThreadStart delegate is saying it should be a void and it should not take any return, any input parameter. And in this case, this this method taking one input parameter, so you cannot pass that. So this is the point that you need to remember, right? What is the point? Now, if your thread function does not take any input data, and if the thread function does not return any data, then in that case, you can use the ThreadStart delegate. Clear?
Yeah.
Right? Now we are going to discuss creating a thread class instance using anonymous method. So is that possible? We can create an ThreadStart instance using anonymous method. Is that possible?
Yes.
So what we need to do is to the constructor only, right? How anonymous methods are created?
Using delegate.
Using delegate keyword, right? So let me comment all this thing. Everything is possible. I'm directly using. So in this case, right? Okay, let me give the name as 3. So in this case, this is nothing but my anonymous method. So you can also pass an anonymous method to a delegate. And in this case, this is the delegate keyword. You need to use the delegate keyword to create anonymous method, and you can pass that anonymous method as a parameter, because this thread class constructor except one delegate which does not take any parameter and doesn't return any value. In this case, this anonymous method does not take any parameter and it is also not returning anything. That means the signature is matched, so you can pass that anonymous method as a parameter to this. So now if you run the application, then you will get the output as expected. So now if I will ask you, can we use lambda expression here instead of a delegate?
Yes.
So how the lambda expression is going to be used? Lambda expression means first of all the input parameter list, then you
Yeah.
need to use the lambda operator.
And
That's it, right? So in the case of the lambda operator, you can also use the lambda operator instead of an anonymous method. So we have already discussed the delegate, we have already discussed anonymous method, and we have already discussed lambda operator or lambda expression. These are the three things how you can register. So in the previous case, this is a named method, and here it is a unnamed code block, right? Previously, we have shown you anonymous method. Even anonymous method, you can also simplify by using the lambda operator. So any question from anyone?
no, sir.
Okay. So this thing we have already covered in our last session, right? Now, so the example what we have discussed so far, this method does not take any parameter. Now comes to our main topic, how we can pass parameter to our thread function, right? To pass, if you want to pass parameter to our thread function, then which delegate I need to use? ThreadStart delegate or parameterized ThreadStart? Parameterized ThreadStart. So the point, so if someone asks you what is the difference between ThreadStart delegate and parameterized ThreadStart delegate, the one and only difference between them is that the ThreadStart delegate does not take any parameter, whereas the parameterized ThreadStart delegate takes one input parameter of which type?
Object
Type.
Object type. If it is taking parameter of object type, can I pass integer value?
Yes.
Can I pass string value?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, all are objects.
Superclass is object.
Exactly, because object is the superclass, and we already discussed a parent class or reference variable can hold the child class object instance. So here object is the parent class, so it can hold any type of value you pass, right? So in this case, you can see why I'm getting this error. Can anybody tell me?
System.threading need to be used.
Yes, because all the threading related classes are belongs to system.threading namespace. I have not included that namespace, so that's why I'm getting this. So currently, if you look at the display number function, it is taking one parameter of object type, right? So why it is mandatory to pass the parameter of object type? Because we need to check the syntax. The syntax of a parameterized, first of all, can I use this ThreadStart delegate to pass some data?
No.
No, because it is not expecting any parameter. So I can use this parameterized ThreadStart delegate to pass data. But what type of parameter I need to define inside my thread function? Object type, because we need to match. We need to check the signature, right? The signature saying that the thread function, what you are going to be created should have the return type void, and it should accept one parameter of which type? Object type. So in this example, so the return type is going to be void, right? Same as the parameterized ThreadStart delegate. And the parameter what it is taking, it is nothing but your object type as per your parameterized ThreadStart delegate, right? That means now this method signature what I'm providing here is same as this delegate signature or not?
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, then can I use this display number function? Can I pass this display number function as a parameter to this ThreadStart delegate constructor? Can I pass? If I'm going to create an instance of this ThreadStart parameterized ThreadStart delegate to the constructor, can I pass this method as a parameter?
Yeah.
Yes.
But which type of method is this? This is a static method or non-static method?
Non-static.
Non-static method means can I pass directly this method name as a parameter, or I need to use the class name, or I need to create an instance of the program class?
Create an instance.
Exactly. So in this case, you can see here I'm creating an instance of a thread class. To the constructor, I'm passing this display number function as a parameter. Now the same thing I'm going to explain it. So instead of this statement, what you can do, you can create parameterized thread starter delegate PTST equals to new parameterized thread start delegate, and to this constructor I can pass this method as a parameter or not, right? Then what I can do is I can create another instance T2, right? And to this thread class constructor, can I pass this one?
Yes.
Yes or no? Can I pass this one? Why it is accepting? Because this thread class constructor, one of the overloaded version of thread class constructor, expecting one parameter of a parameterized thread class, right? If you go to this thread class definition, you will see that one of the overloaded version of the thread class constructor except one parameter of parameterized thread start. And here we are passing that parameterized thread class instance. So it is accepting. There is no issue. Yes or no?
Yes.
Any question? And now, okay, so instead of doing this 2 line of code, right? So what I can do is I can directly pass this statement directly the instance I'm passing. So here what I'm trying to do is I'm creating the instance, right? I'm creating the instance and storing that instance inside an instance variable, right? So this is nothing but one instance variable, right? And that instance variable I'm passing here. But here I'm not passing that instance variable. I'm directly passing that instance. This is also acceptable, right? This is also acceptable. Why? Because what this delegate required, what this thread class required, one instance of which type parameterized thread start. Whether you pass a reference variable which is pointing to the parameterized thread class instance, or whether you directly pass that instance, no matter, right? So in this case, the instance means the reference address it is going to pass, and in this case, this reference address is stored inside this variable that is also it is passing, right? That means currently this thread, right, is pointing to one delegate instance, right? And that delegate instance pointing to this display number function, right? Now if I pass this now, so how you see in this case, suppose you are creating that PTST. If you want to invoke this PTST, then what you need to do? You need to pass some input values or not? Why?
Yes.
Because this display number method requires some data. Then while invoking the delegate, you need to pass the data to the delegate. Why? That the handler method are going to get the data from the pipeline. Here delegate is the pipeline. So we need to provide the data to the delegate. The delegate will provide those data to the respective method. So in this case, while calling the delegate instance, right, we need to pass the data. In the same way, while you are calling the thread class, right, while you are calling the start method on the thread class instance, you need to pass the data. So once you pass this data, right, internally, what he will do, it will invoke this parameterized thread start by passing the same data, right? Internally, the thread class parameterized thread start delegate instance invoked, and that internally what value you are passing, that value will be passed. And once this invoked, once this delegate instance invoked, that means this display number function is invoked, because delegate will invoke this function, and while invoking that function, this data what you are passing, that data will come and sit in this variable or not.
Yes.
So see, up to now this is the thread part, but from here the delegate come into the picture, and we already discussed that. If you want to invoke the delegate, you can invoke the delegate like this, right? You can invoke the delegate like this, and what value you are passing, those value is going to be stored inside the variable which you created in your function. So in this case, so when you run this application, this 5 will come and store inside this max variable or not?
Yes.
But here max variable is of which type?
Object type.
Then we need to convert that into integer type. How we can convert? By doing the typecasting. So we need to convert this to integer 32, and once we convert, then we can loop this and we can get the data. We can see the output. See, Why 1 to 10 here? Because we have written this delegate calling statement, right? So this statement is printing 1 to 10. And now let me comment this one and run this, and you will see that only 1 to 5. Is that clear? What is the difference between a parameterized thread start and a parameterized thread start? The difference is that this thread start delegate doesn't take any parameter, and this parameterized thread start delegate takes one input parameter of which type? Object type. That means if you want to pass some data in the form of an object, then you need to use this delegate, and if you don't want to pass any data, then you need to use this data. But they both the delegate are never going to return any data, right? Clear or not?
Yes, this is clear. But one doubt, like, can we create our custom delegate and call that using thread class?
So first of all, you just tell me, if you are creating custom delegate, is there any constructor in the thread class which accept any type of a custom delegate?
Okay. Okay.
You are only giving the answer. Can I pass any other delegate instance apart from this ThreadStart and parameterized ThreadStart? Is that going to be acceptable?
No, it will not.
It will not, because these are the two delegate instance, right? Two delegate that is used by multi-threading. You cannot pass any other delegate, right? So this is working fine. What is the problem? See, in this case, instead of a 5, if I'm passing high, then what is going to happen? Am I getting any compilation error?
Runtime error.
Runtime error. What kind of a runtime error? Any idea?
Exception.
Cannot
think-
cast.
Format exception or anything else?
Format exception. Like
Because
it's
the
a string,
input
right?
type, the input string is
Into-
not in a correct format. So that is what you are going to see. So the input value or input value what you are passing is not in a correct format. So we are unable to typecast it. So you can see input string was not in a correct format. So you cannot convert high to any integer type variable. So that means what? That means the thread function, see, if you are using parameterized ThreadStart delegate to pass some data, then those data are not typeset. Right? What is meaning by typeset means if the error you will come to know at the time of a compilation, then that is going to be said as a typeset. But in this case, the error, right? So you are passing some wrong data, but you will only able to know that information only at runtime, right? So this is nothing but a typeset. Typeset means what? Now, if I'm passing other, so what I need to do is I need to create the method, right? So when I am passing other than integer, right? If I'm passing other than integer, it should give me the compilation error immediately. Right? If I'm passing some Boolean value, it should give me the compilation error immediately. If I'm passing some integer data, it should accept. Other than integer, it should give me the compilation error immediately. Is that possible using this parameterized ThreadStart delegate? No, that is not possible. Why? Because it is taking one parameter of object type. So any type of value you pass, you will get the, it will not give you any compilation error. That means this thread function, what we have created here, it is not a typeset. Clear or not? Not typeset means what? Any type of value you can pass, this function is going to accept, right? Internally, when you are going to get runtime error when you are converting. But if you are passing any value, that value is going to be accepted by this function. That means the type is not set, right? So what our intention? Our intention is to make the thread function typeset. That typeset means I'm going to pass only integer value. If I'm passing other than integer, then it should not accept it. It should give me some compilation error. That means we do not want that runtime exception. We do not want runtime exception. We only want to know, we only get compilation error if I'm going to pass other than integer value. Second thing, what is this? What is this? This is boxing or not? This is unboxing or not? Because converting an object type to value type is nothing but your unboxing.
Unboxing.
And whenever you are passing some string value, that will be converted to your object data type, that is boxing.
Box.
That means if you are working on object data type, that means you are working on a boxing and unboxing concept, right or not?
Yes.
And boxing or unboxing is going to give you good performance or bad performance?
Bad performance.
Bad performance, because unnecessary I'm going to do the typecasting. Every time I'm storing some string value, it will be converted to an object. Every time I am going to paste the data, again that object will be converted to the appropriate type. That conversion we need to avoid. How we can avoid? If we make the thread function type safe, then we can avoid this boxing and unboxing. Instead of object, right? If I pass integer value, right? Is that boxing and unboxing is required anymore? If this is for taking integer value, right, then do I need to do this kind of typecasting anymore?
No.
That means if we make the thread function a type say function, right, that means this boxing and unboxing concept will not come into the picture. Even and while calling this display number function, if I pass other than integer, will that will that statement going to give me any kind of compilation error? Right. So in this case, if I'm going to call this method by passing integer, this is fine. It is fine. If I'm going to pass some string value, is that going to give me some compilation error?
Yes.
Yes.
Why? Because the type is fixed. Type is fixed means what? Now you can only pass integer value. But instead of integer, if I make this an object, then this compilation error I will not get. Right? Then what I need to do? I need to do this typecasting. Right? Let me comment this one max. Right? So then I need to do typecasting. Right? So we need to avoid a typecasting. That means what? We need to avoid boxing and unboxing. First thing. Second, we need to get compilation error if we are passing different data. That means what? We need to pass the data in a type set. How we can achieve this? How we can achieve this using multi-threading? That is what we need to understand, right? So for that, what I need to do is I need to create one helper class, right? Let me call that class as number helper. Okay. Right. Okay. Let me delete all these things. Okay. First of all, what you need to do is the function, the thread function, you need to move into a different class. You can say it's going to be a helper class. Okay. Let me create a class file, number helper.cs. The thread function and the data what you want to pass, it should be moved to a different class file. So here my class name is number helper, and this is my display number function. And this display number function currently not expecting any input parameter, but the constructor is expecting one input parameter of which type? Integer type, right? And I'm creating one variable, right? I'm initializing that variable using this number variable, and by default this variable is going to be private. If you are not using the private keyword, then also it is going to be private. That means from outside you cannot access this variable. Internally, you can use this variable within this class. We have already discussed what is the use of a private member. Private member means only within the containing type. So within this class, you can use. So we are expecting one input number to be passed while creating the instance of this class. And that number we are initializing with this variable. And then we are looping through the display number function, right? Using that variable, right? Previously, what we have done, right? In the previous example, what we have done this, right? So we have done object max, right? So object max, and what we have done, the integer max number equals to convert dot to int 32, and to this constructor, what we are passing this variable. So previously we have done this, and this is not type set. we have already discussed, right? Why? Because it operates on data type, right? To use this loop, what we need? We need the number. Yes or no?
Yes.
So this number, instead of passing as a parameter, so what I am doing, okay, let me close all this. Okay, so this number, instead of passing as a parameter, what I am doing here, I am taking that number through the constructor of this class. Got it? And using that number, I'm looping through this variable. Now, this number or display function does not take any input parameter, but the constructor of the class takes some input parameter. Now, if you want, you can pass one parameter. If you want, you can pass two parameter. There is no such restrictions. And I'm just using that number. So what is now? Now previously, if you want to invoke that function, so how we are going to use that function? So we are going to use that function like this: program obj equals to new program, right? And then we are invoking the function like this, right? We are invoking the function like this, and we are just passing the value 10. So this is what we are calling previously. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But
Yes.
now if I want to execute this number function by passing the value 10, how I can do this? So what you need to do is, you need to create an instance of a number helper class or not. To this number
Yes.
helper class, I need to pass some value 10. Yes or no? Then I need to invoke this obj2 dot display number. Both this method are going to do the same thing or not?
Yes.
This method is going to print the number from 1 to 10. This method is also going to print the number of 1 to 10. But what is the difference between these two? Can anybody tell me?
We are calling through another class.
That
The
is not,
variable is in the method itself, but here it needs to access from the class.
no, that is not the difference. The difference is that in this case, if I'm going to pass high, am I going to get any compilation error?
No.
In this case, let's try to pass high.
Type safe. Yes, it will. Because it is type safe.
That means the version what we have implemented here is type safe. Means what? Now, if you are trying to pass other than integer, then you will get compilation error. But this is not possible with this version because this data type is object data type. And here the number helper class is expecting one parameter of input type, which is going to be integer. And if you are passing other than integer, you will get the compilation error. Now you understand what is the difference between these two methods. So in this case, we are passing the input number as a parameter to the method directly. In this case, we are passing that input parameter not to the method directly, but to the constructor. Here, what input method parameter this display number method received, he used that directly. In this case, this display number function used the input parameter which is set by this constructor, right? But the major difference between these two, that this display number function, it is not type safe, and this constructor what you are creating here, it is type safe. Clear or not?
Yes, sir, this is clear. But what if the method is static?
Sorry.
You cannot, yeah. No, what if the display number is static?
What
cannot,
if this method is static?
Yeah.
No, you cannot make this method as static. This is the implementation. You cannot mark this method as static.
Okay.
Right? You cannot mark that method as static. It should be non-static. Right? So that is fine. But how we can use threading in this case? That is what we need to understand. So threading, what you need to do is threading. Okay, let me pass 10 here. Let me comment these two statements here. Right? So let me take this two statement above this red line statement. Okay. Now, thread class T1 equals to new thread, right? So to this function, can I pass obj2 display numbers directly? Can I comment this one?
Yes.
Then can I call this T1.start method now?
Yes.
Right? So in this case, the thread function or its type safe or not? If you are trying to, this thread function is going to work, right, on integer data type or in object data type.
Integer.
Integer.
Boxing and unboxing is required.
No.
Not required.
If I pass other than integer, it's going to give me any compilation error.
Yes.
This is what you need to understand. How to pass data in a type set manner means you need to create one class, helper class, right? So that is the why I'm saying that it's a number helper class. In that number helper class, you need to declare some private variables which is going to hold your data, or you can set the data which you want the thread function to be operate on. You need to declare some private variable, and using that class constructor, you need to initialize this variable, right? And then your thread function is going to use those variables directly. Is that clear? How to pass data to a thread function in a type shape manner?
Yes, sir. This is clear. So one doubt, like, can't we create our own constructor in already created class, like system class?
System
Is there,
class. System class
like,
means
not system class? In the thread class, I want to create a new constructor. Can't we do that?
so. First of all, tell me, thread is a class. Do you think that a thread is a class? It's a delegate, right? It's a delegate behind the scene.
No, not this one. The thread class is there, no thread class.
So you mean you want to create a different constructor in the thread class?
Yeah, is it possible? I'm asking.
See, you can create a class. You cannot create a constructor in a thread class. Why? How you can create? Just tell me. Using extension method, you are thinking, right?
Yeah.
But extension method are used for creating method, not constructor.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Like that. Like, do we have any such?
No, there is no chance. Constructor and method both are different. You can extend this thread class. You can create your own method, right? That you can access using the thread class instance. But this constructor, it's not possible. You cannot create a constructor using extension method. You can create a method, normal method that you can invoke using this thread class instance, but you cannot extend constructor. You can extend method.
Okay.
Right? So this is not possible. So this is how you need to pass the data to a type shape manner to a thread function.
But if the class is not a sealed class, then we can create then we can arrange our own custom constructor instead of calling all these things.
Exactly. If the class is not sealed, then you can inherit that class to your child class. In your child class, you can create your own version of constructors. Anything possible. But this class is marked as sealed. That is also not possible.
Yes. So in that case, if it is not sealed, then we would have, instead of creating all these special helper class and doing stuff, so we can directly create a constructor and pass our parameters like types of.
So first of all, you need to understand that if you are creating a custom class, thread class, then what do you want to provide in that class? So you are not going to implement this display number function in the thread class. This is a completely different method. So why we are using this thread class to execute some different method? We are not going to. It is not to be supposed to be the display number function should be available in the thread class. The purpose of a thread class is different. Thread class is basically used to execute some different methods using a different threads. It should not be like that. Do you think of the start method? Start method, you cannot write any business logic inside the start method. The purpose of the start method is already fixed.
No, sir, not display number. Telling that constructed with overloaded like different types of parameters like types F.
See, the constructor means either you have to pass this thread start or parameterized thread start. Other you cannot pass. Other parameter if you pass, then what is the use of that parameter? First tell me.
So in case of type safe function, we can directly call that. No? So instead of
So,
creating the separate class.
yeah, that is possible. So what you can do is at that time you can create your own version of constructor where you can define one delegate, right, which signature match with this signature. For example, you can say like this integer, right? So you can define one delegate that signature is matched with this signature, right? And inside that delegate, you need to write the logic to invoke that the instant. That is possible. But why you are thinking about that? Because already this class is marked as a shield, so thinking this thing is useless.
Yeah, I was just having the possibility if it is not.
Possibility. If it is not a shield class, then whatever concept we have so far discussed, everything is possible. But when this class is marked as shield, then thinking of inheriting this thread class, it's just a waste of time. If this class is not shield, then you need to think about it, how we can implement this, right? That is the thing. So already we have discussed how to create a custom event R class, how to create a custom exception classes, right? Already we have discussed it because at that time, those event R class or a custom exception classes, right? Those are not marked as shield, so we can create our own version of the class. But at that time, thinking that is good. But as you can see, this signature is already marked as shield. Then thinking that I'm going to create my own version of constructor where I'm going to create my own delegate, it is a waste of time because you know practically this is not possible. If this is not possible practical, then thinking that thing is it's nothing but it is waste of your time. Yes or no?
Yes, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Right.
You have to wait until Microsoft
Sorry.
publish a new version. You have to wait until Microsoft publish a new version of the net framework, and that's unsealed.
Yeah, yeah.
No, just a joke. Just
Yeah,
a joke,
then just think about that. Microsoft, how does know that what type of a method you are going to define, whether your method is going to take integer parameter, or whether your method is going to take 2 integer, 3 integer, 1 integer, 1 string. How Microsoft will decide that? Microsoft is not got what you are going to implement in your application, then no advance, right? So it's not possible to them also to decide how many numbers of constructor we are going to provide so that it can fulfill the user requirement. It's possible that some of the time you need to pass some custom class argument, right? Suppose you are having a custom class that if you want to pass that as an argument, then how Microsoft will come to know that what kind of classes you are going to create, whether you are going to create employee class, product class, order class, right? How many properties in there in the product employee, nothing is known to Microsoft. That is the reason why they just make these two things, right? One is without parameter, one is with object parameter. As object parameter, you can pass anything. So any type of value you want, you can use this, right? That is fine. Now the major issue is, as you know, the signature of the delegate, ThreadStart delegate, and the parameterized ThreadStart, both are going to return what type of a value? Void. Void means they are nothing written, right? They cannot return anything, right? So once the method execution is completed, right? If you want to return some data, then how you can do this? So in this case, see, suppose in this case, I'm taking an integer number. So what I can do is number equals to number plus I, right? I can mark this as integer, and here I can return that number, right? So I can return that number. So I'm taking one input number, I'm doing the addition of 2 from 1 to that number, and I'm returning the number as a input, right? So in this case, I cannot use this display number function, right? Why? Because its return type is going to. So, okay, let's assume that you are taking this as an input max, right? You are taking this as input max, and what you are doing here, right? So in this case, you can say that this method is taking one object parameter. So I can use the parameterized ThreadStart delegate to bind this method, and but the thing is that the return type is integer, so you cannot use this method, right? So if you try to use this method, right, then you will get some kind of error, right? Let me show you this practically. Okay, let me give this as a different name, and let me make this a static method, right? So if I'm going to pass this display number method as a parameter here, then I will get some kind of error, right? Why this error? Because no delegate, right? No delegate this thread class constructor, except those are having return type as integer. So you can see has the wrong return type. That means the return type is wrong. That means you cannot pass one method whose return type is integer, right? Then how? See, by using thread function, we are going to execute the method, right? We are going to execute the method, but the method what we can execute, those method doesn't have any return type. Then how we are going to return the data? Any idea from anybody? How you can return data from a thread function?
Using public variables.
Sorry?
Using public variables.
But if I am using public variables, then how I can get the data in this main method?
Sir, using out variable or action method, action delegate.
But your delegate function doesn't take those out variable or action method.
Function generic delegate we can use.
Not generic delegate. Basically, what we can use callback functions, right? We can use callback function. Let's see how. So what I'm doing here, I'm changing this. I'm giving that callback result. Method name is callback result, right? And here I'm expecting one parameter of integer type, integer result, right? And then I'm writing one statement that is result is result, right? So I'm writing this. That means what? Now, whatever this method, display number method, is going to perform, at the end, he is going to return me some result, and that result I want to print in this method. So what it means, I need to pass one callback. I need to tell this display number method, hey, display number method, once you complete your execution, right, please call this method. But this display number method or this number helper method, he have no idea about this method. He cannot create an instance of a program class, and he cannot call this callback result method directly because he have no idea. At this time, you are calling this from this place. Here you want, after execution of this method, he should call this callback method. From a different places, you might be calling this number helper method, and at that time, you might want that number helper method to call a different method. So I cannot create, okay, for example, right, some other class, right? So this is some other class, and inside this some other class. Okay, let me copy these things, right? So in this case, some other class, right? So in this case, what happening? Now, in this case, what happening? I'm creating the number helper class. I'm executing this method, but I want after end of the execution, this display number method should call this method, right? And in program class, what we are expecting at the end of this method execution, it should call this callback method. callback result, and here I'm giving this name as a callback to result 2. So in that case, I cannot hard code it, right? I cannot create an instance of a program class and I cannot invoke this method, or I cannot create an instance of this class and I cannot invoke this method, because I do not know from what are the different places from where this method is going to be called. At the end of this method call, what method to be executed? That idea, this display number method, I have no idea, right? Then can you tell me, can you give me some suggestion how I can implement this?
Here, I think you can create an instance of delegate and call that.
Exactly. You need to create one delegate. Let's see public delegate. You can give the name as callback delegate, and this callback delegate is going to accept, okay, return type is void, and this callback delegate is going to take one parameter of integer type, right? One parameter of integer type, right? Let me declare this delegate instance here so that I do not need to declare this delegate inside the program class and inside the some other class. So I'm declaring the delegate here. So what I can do here is, right, I can create an instance of a callback delegate equals to new callback delegate, and to this instance, can I pass this method as a parameter?
Yes.
Okay, it is a non-static method. Let me make this as static, right? So I can directly pass. If it is a non-static, then you need to create an instance of program class and you need to pass that. So I can pass this one. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm making this number helper class constructor to accept the second parameter as the delegate instance. I'm creating here private delegate callback delegate underscore callback. Let's give the proper naming. I'm using this one equals to, I'm initializing that with the return variable, right? And after this, I'm checking if this is not null, then invoke this method, right? And before that, what you need to do is integer result equals to 0, right? Printing the value is 5, and result equals to result plus I, and let me return the result. So is that clear? So here I'm creating one delegate, right? And here I'm creating a private variable. I'm initializing that private variable using the constructor, this delegate private variable using the constructor. And from the method, I'm invoking that delegate by checking if the delegate instance is not null. If the delegate instance is not null, then just invoke the delegate and pass the data. Now from the program class, right, what you need to do is you need to pass the delegate instance as a parameter or not. So now when you call this start method, then this display number method is going to be executed. Yes or no?
Yes.
This display number method, when execute, it is going to execute this statement. Again, it is going to invoke the delegate instance, right? And currently you are calling this display number method using this obj2, right? And in obj2, what value you are passing? 10. What callback instance you are passing? This callback result, right? That means in this case, what method it is going to invoke?
Callback result.
Callback, callback result. Now, from this place, what I'm going to do is right from some other class, right? I need to call this. Then again, public static. So in this case, I'm passing this callback result to 2, and I'm passing this method as a parameter, right? Now, if I'm invoking the display number function from this class, then the display number function will get the value. So first of all, the constructor get this one. Constructor will get this instance, this callback instance pointing to this callback result 2 method, right? And when this display number method execute, right, And when it is going to invoke this method, then what method is going to execute? From which
Callback.
class?
Callback result 2.
Callback result 2 from some other class. Now, from anywhere you want to use this display number function means, first of all, you need to create an instance of this class. And while creating an instance of this class, you need to pass the number and the callback method instance, right? Callback delegate. And this callback delegate will point to a method from where we are going to send the data. So this is how you need to pass the data in a typeset manner on how you are going to return data. Clear or any question? Now, if you run the application, you will see that the output is as expected. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and result is 55. How this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to 10, this is going to be used by this for loop. And every time we are looping, we are just adding the number with the result variable. And then we are just invoking this callback delegate, and that callback delegate is going to invoke this method, and this callback delegate sending the data, thread function data, and that thread function data we received and we display it in the console. Is that clear?
So just a minute, like I got confused with the two callback functions here. One is callback result and result 2. Like, can you please clear that? Like, what exactly?
Why you are confusing? So it is a method, right?
Okay, this is main method that we are printing. Okay.
So forget about the main method. So when you are going to develop any kind of a real-time application, then you will not find any kind of a main method, right? So this is one method, right? And this method you can call from this class. Forget about the main method. It is one class. Let's say this is place 1, right? This is your place 1. This is place 1. And you also want to do the same kind of operation in place 2. That means from two different places, you need to invoke this method, this display number method. So why we are creating method? Method means for reusability purpose. Reusability purpose means once you defined one method, then you can use that method anywhere from your application code. Is it mandatory that your application should have only one class file with the name program.cs, or you can create any number of a class file?
Any number of class.
So think that this is one class file. This is number.helper.cell, number helper. It is another class file, and it is some other class. This is also another class file. So from some other class file, can I create an instance of this class?
Yes.
If I create an instance of this class, can I invoke this method?
Yes.
From this program.cs class file, can I create an instance of this class?
Yes.
Can I invoke this display number function?
Yes.
That means from now some other class, can I create a thread? By using that thread, can I invoke this method?
Yes.
From program.cs class file, can I do the same thing, creating one thread and using that thread? Can I invoke this method?
Yes.
So that is what I'm doing. And while I'm invoking this method, I want some data as input return. I want to I want some return data, right? And for that return data in program.cs class file, I'm creating this method. So what my intention is, now once the callback, once the thread function execute, that thread function at the end should execute this callback function. This is what this program class or place 1 he wants. And from place 2, right, some other class, he is calling the same display number function, right? But after executing this display number function, he wants the data to be returned back, right? So he is providing this callback method too. So in this case, whatever result you return, I'm just printing that result. Okay, so any kind of operation you want, you can do. I'm doing like this, right? And if you want to execute this some other method, right? So what I can do is, let me comment all these things, right? I'm commenting this thing. Can I create an instance of some other class?
Yes.
Some program class? Right? Can I call that some other method? Okay, this is a static method. We need to make this as public, right? So as it's a static method, so what I need to do is I need to call this method directly by using the class name, right? Clear or not? This some the other method, what is declared inside this class is a static method. So as it's a static method, if I want to execute this method, then I can directly call that method by using the class name. Yes or no?
Yes.
What is the doubt? Who is asking me that question? What is your name?
Yeah, my name is Bhargav, sir.
Bhargav. Bhargav,
Like I
you
got
just answer me. You just answer me. Bhargav, can I call this some other method? I using that class name from my program class.
yes, we can call it.
So if I call this method, then this body is going to be executed.
Yes,
This some other method going to be executed by which thread, main thread or any child thread?
it will be main thread.
Okay, so from this main thread, can I execute that display number function, right? Using any child thread?
Yes,
So in this case, this child thread is going to be executed, right? In this case, when the thread executes we are using that thread, we are calling this method, right? Once this method execution completed, it is going to return me the data. And for returning data, I'm providing this callback method. So now, once the method execution completed, it will return the data back to this method, callback to result, right? So in this case, if you run the application, you will get the data right inside this two method, right? Callback result to. See, callback result to, it is getting the data, right? That means what I mean to say you is, so this display number method have no idea from where this method is being called, whether this method is being called from program class or some other class or some different other classes. This method have no idea. So if you are thinking that I can create an instance of this class directly and I can call this method, then it should not be the case. So in this case, it's possible. It's possible. Let me show you, right? Let me show you. In this case, you can create an instance of program class, program obj equals to new program. This is possible, and using this obj dot, I need to make this. Okay, it's a static method, right? So you need to call that static method by using the right. I
like
can
I got the like calling just to get the output parameter from display numbers, we are calling the callback method. So my doubt is like there are two callback functions, no, that because of that I got confused. Like
first of all, tell me, this callback result is going to be available in which class?
program class. So
That means program class created this method for their own purpose.
okay, so that is
He
like
might be, yeah,
from where we are calling it, there we have to declare that callback function to receive the result that is sent. I mean that is sent from that display method.
now this program class will decide whether I need to use this callback method or whether I need to use this callback result to method. That is the responsibility of program class. It is not it is not like that the result should always going to be stored inside this callback method. If the program class wants, then he can also create an instance of this class and he can provide that method callback to as a callback method. That is also possible. There is no such logic that the method should be declared here or the method should be declared here. It is up to you, right? If from here, if you want, you can also pass the program class callback to result method, right? So here you can also pass like this, program dot callback result. This is also possible. So in this case, right? So in this case, this callback result, right? So after executing this method, so he will invoke this method only. See, what my intention is, you can declare the callback function anywhere. So what I'm trying to make you understand is there should not be any hard-coded logic. So if you are thinking, why I'm passing this callback method as a parameter, why I'm going to initialize, why I'm going to invoke this method, I can directly invoke this method from here. The result will become and store here. We should not do that. Why? Because we do not know from which callback method we need to invoke. This display number function have no idea that the callback method is going to be executed from program class or it is going to be executed from some other class. This is the reason why this method we are passing that method delegate as a parameter, and we are just invoking that delegate. You should not hard code the logic like this. If you hard code the statement like this, every time you run the application, the callback method from the program class is going to be in. Right? So we have already discussed this thing, why we are passing the callback method as a parameter, why we are not hard coding the same thing, right? Already we have discussed this thing in delegate concept. Don't think that why two callback method. You can have 10 callback method, you can have 50 callback method, you can call this number helper method from 50 different places. Each time you call this method, you want that method to return the data to a different callback method. That is possible.
Okay.
Right? So there should not be any restriction, right? Callback method means it might be any method, and that method details this display numbers method doesn't have any idea what method I'm going to call at all. Clear? Any question from anyone? How to return data from a thread function in a type-safe manner? Guys?
No.
Clear?
Yes.
Okay, so don't confuse with this why I'm using callback result 1, why I'm using callback result 2. Then you might be one question, sir, why the main method is there? Why this class doesn't have a main method? Right? You should ask me why this some other method is there, why this method is not there. So it is basically their own purpose. Any number of method you want, you can create inside this program class. Any number of method you want, you can create inside this class. There is no relation between this program class and this some other class. You can declare the same method name inside the some other class. You can also declare the same method inside this some program class, right? The implementation, you can also provide the same implementation. You can provide the different implement. It is up to us now. These are nothing but user-defined function. User-defined function means as per our requirement, we can provide implementation. The implementation may be same, may be different. That doesn't matter, right? Any question from anyone? Guys? Okay. Bhargav, is that clear?
Yes, yes. Clear. Thank you.
Okay, so why I'm using different callback methods? Can you tell me?
Yeah, in order to get the result in where we are calling it. So I want to receive the result in different methods. So I'm calling.
Exactly. So you want the result to be written back to different methods. That's why we are creating different callback methods, right? If you want the result to be always returned to a same callback method, then don't use this one. No? You can use that one only. So program callback, you need to pass that method here. But if you want the result to be written back to a different method, then you need to create a different callback method, right? And this helper class have no idea to return the result to which callback method, because we are not hard coded anything like this, right? You should not hard code like this, because in this example you might be question, sir, I'm having one callback method only that is defined in the program class, so I can do the hard coded like this, right? I can remove this statement, that is fine. But what happened tomorrow? You want the callback result to a different method, right? Then again, what you need to do, you need to come to this class and you need to do the changes, right? So the changes should not be do on this thing. If you are changing the callback method, means from where you are calling this display method, the changes should be done there, not here. The display number method responsibility to implement the business logic and to send the return result back to someone else. To whom I'm going to send the result, that will be decided by the caller of this method. That will be not decided by the me. If I'm doing like this, it is now I'm deciding, right? Now this display number method deciding to send the result where, right? But it should not be the responsibility of a display number method. It is whose responsibility? Who is calling this display number method? That method will decide to where send the result back, right? That is the point that you need to understand, right? So it should not be hard-coded like this. And if you implement like this, now the caller of this display number method will decide to where send the result. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Any question from anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And guys, tomorrow we might not have any class because I'm traveling tomorrow. Next class is Saturday or Sunday. I will update you. Right? Tomorrow I will update you because once I reach, I will update you. Thank you. Thank you.